And good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, online at bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO, and also on the Civic Media app. I'm Chad Holmes, joined by Jeff Gress, and tonight we are with you for the next 2 hours until 8 p.m. We'll have three special guests all joining us here in studio tonight. At 6:20, we'll be joined by the head boys basketball coach at Marathon High School, Adam Jacobson, as the Red Raiders get set for their big sectional semifinal against Auburndale tomorrow night, right here on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9. Then at 7 o'clock, we'll have our student athlete guest from Newman Catholic High School, their outstanding senior guard, Isaac Sei. He's also getting set for a big sectional semifinal game, Cardinals against Pacelli tomorrow night, which I'll have live online at bullfallsradio.com and the Sports 2 stream. And then at 7:20, we'll be joined by the legendary coach of the Wausau West girls basketball team, winner of 6 state championships, 3 at Marathon on the boys' side, 3 at Newman Catholic on the girls' side. We'll be joined by Tom Weinkoff. Jeff Gress, plenty of big names in addition to yours coming in here tonight.
I'm not even close. The best thing, I get to be a season ticket holder on this show, that you invite me back every week. That's the nice part about this. But all the guests are going to just great insights and experience and things that we're going to get to chat about. See, I was just thinking that on the drive over here, like how fast this goes. We were just waiting for conference championships and conference seasons to start and all this stuff, and now we're winding down here.
We'll talk a little bit later on about what's been going on in girls high school basketball. Of course, the state tournament gets underway tomorrow over at the Resch Center. So not anybody from central Wisconsin, the closest from the Great Northern Conference, Lakeland. We'll talk about that coming up. But first, we're going to talk about the boys basketball playoffs. The regionals were held last weekend. The sectionals are coming up this weekend. And starting off in Division I, the teams from the Wisconsin Valley Conference not able to make it through to the sectionals. Starting off, the Marshfield Tigers, number 5 seed in the bracket. At home, they lost to number 12, and right now a Cinderella, Appleton North, by a score of 58-49. Luke Lemoyne had 23 points. Brooks Hinson, 10 for Marshfield. Appleton North then continued, and they knocked off number 4 seeded Hortonville on the road on Saturday. So a number 12 seed making it to the sectionals. Bottom of the bracket, the teams from the Valley. Wausau West, a game that I had last Friday night at number 2 Hudson. Warriors number 15 seeded, Hudson number 2 seeded. Wausau West had a 24-21 lead in the final moments of the first half, but then saw Hudson behind the three-point shooting of Ben Burkhoff come back and knock off the Warriors 58-39. Burkhoff hit a three-pointer at the buzzer of the first half to tie it up, and then he broke it open personally in the second half with 4 consecutive three-pointers. A kid that had not been a good three-point shooter during the season, but boy, he had a huge night for Hudson. Cole Nelson had 20 points, Brett Butala 10 for the Warriors. And also D.C. Everest in the regional semifinals on Friday. In a low-scoring affair, they were able to knock off Appleton East by a score of 46-41. Marcus Hall had 18, Cohen Preby 9 in that game. And then on Saturday, the Evergreens fell at Hudson by a score of 64-44. Only one player in double figures for the Evergreens. Marcus Hall, 22 points. No one else had more than 6 points for Everest in that game. And also, Stevens Point, the number 11 seed on Friday, they led at number 6 Nina at halftime, 21-19, but then were outscored 41-24 in the second half. Nina with a 60-45 victory in that game. So looking at the teams in the Valley in Division I, disappointing for Marshfield, obviously, with the Wisconsin Valley Conference Championship having home game against a number 12 seed, not able to get through, and then everybody else loses on Friday except for Everest, who got that first win but could not get past the regional final.
Well, and that's just the tough role. I mean, you kind of set your benchmarks after you go through your conference schedule, finish as high as you can, and you want to get a couple of those playoff wins. Everybody wants to hit that marker of that regional title at least. It's just a good feeling. You won 3 playoff games in, get to put some hardware into your school, and it's a tough call because the Division I teams here, it's just kind of a similar, not to say that they're not good basketball teams, it's a similar pattern, though. These teams out of the Fox Valley, some of the teams that are a little farther north in Spear Hudson, some of these teams giving them fits as they go through the bracket and the upsets happen. So to me, what it looked like was it was a really tough road to make it to Saturday. Everest was the one survival. I wanted to see them punch through a little bit, and they came up, with a tough one against Hudson. And for a lot of these teams, it was a tale of that second half. They just fell apart coming out of there at halftime, got outscored. Teams tweaked their strategies, and it didn't go the way for the Valley teams. And I know it's always tough because you had it's all about making memories and looking back on what you got to live for within that year, because that's that group's year. That's what they get to do. And so I think it's hard to go out maybe if you felt you went out earlier than you should have. It's tough to do. So I think for the Valley teams, a little bit of a tough road and something, I often think, what is the answer to punch through these teams once you get out of the Central Wisconsin area? I don't know what it is or what's holding that back, because there seems to be a pattern in these brackets.
And the thing about in that bracket, sectional number 1, Division 1, there were big upsets.
Yeah.
I mean, the number 16 team beat the number 1 team. Hard to believe.
When's the last time you heard? Have you ever heard of that?
Did you look?
I mean, has that ever happened before?
I don't know. That I'm guessing it must have, but I don't know. But Oshkosh West went all the way across the state, no less, beat Eau Claire Memorial on Friday. Also in that same bracket, the number 3 team in the bracket fell. Appleton West knocked off Oshkosh North, and the number 5 seed as well. And then, as I said, number 15 was ahead at number 2 until late in the first half. I thought West played a really good game, to be honest with you. I thought they executed as well as they could. And then you have another kid that steps up for a Hudson team that was shooting 21% from three-point range. They hit 5 3-pointers basically in a short period of time to blow it open. And even Stevens Point, the number 11 seed, was ahead at halftime against number 6. So it is possible the higher seeds in that bracket in D1 had their troubles.
Well, right, and it's sustainability a little bit, because there's so many highs and lows that can come out of a basketball game, and that consistency ultimately puts you over the top. And this is the beauty of now. So, people's backs are against the wall. What happens? Are they stepping up? Are they falling apart? And I think that's kind of the neat thing about play from a fan perspective, not always maybe from if you're coaching and you want them to be consistent, you want to know what's going to happen and be a little predictable, it can be difficult. But from a fan perspective, you don't. You got a guy.
You don't want chalk all the time,
right? But you got a player that steps up that didn't. Like you talked about the super. Yeah. You got the upset. I mean, at times when you bow out early, you could always think of not being upset by the 16 seed. You can make it a little farther. But I think it shows that all these teams can play with each other. But what's that consistency? I guess is what I'm getting at. That's going to break you out of that bracket, because that's ultimately where you want to go, where you're sitting down at the Kohl Center playing. And for the area teams in the Valley, the last team standing was on Saturday.
We'll talk about the sectional matchups later in the program, but going to Division 2 on the regional side, a couple of teams made it through, Mosinee and Medford. Medford at the top of the bracket, the number 1 seed. They beat Menominee on Friday, 73-41. Tanner Raby 15, Charlie Kleist 15. And then on Saturday, they knocked off Rice Lake 53-42. Logan Baumgartner had 18, Charlie Kleist 12. Bottom of the bracket, Mosinee on Friday night got a little revenge from a year ago. When Mosinee lost at home to Merrill in the very same round a year ago, they made sure it was not going to happen. 40-17 at halftime, went on to win 79-47 for Mosinee. In that game, balanced attack. 4 players in double figures. Davin Stoffel had 16 points. Merrill was led by Braden Pieper with 15. Also in that bracket, Wausau East on Friday, the number 7 seed, lost at Shawano 75-70. Jesse Knapp-Gesick had 24 points. Isaac Rosbadowski had 18 for the Lumberjacks. And then on Saturday, Mosinee went to Shawano. Mosinee, the number 3 seed, Shawano number 2. Mosinee took a 11-point lead at halftime, went on to win 77-65. 5 players in double digits. Again, balanced attack for Mosinee. Keegan Jershely, 19 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists in that game. And Mosinee advances to the sectional. So Medford and Mosinee get through, and some competitive games as well in that bracket. Even Lakeland, number 5 seed, gave the New London squad on the road a pretty good matchup before falling 65-57. And obviously New London playing well because they knocked off the number 1 seed in that bracket. So Mosinee is actually the higher seed when they play on Thursday. But we'll talk about that later. But in that Division 2, 2 of the teams from the GNC get through.
Yeah, and I thought across the couple of area teams you mentioned, it was more competitive basketball. The scores were a lot tighter. Starting with East, they went on the road over to Channel, gave them a good run, got some good scoring production out of their guard play. Only lost that game by 5, so a solid competitive finish in that game for the end of their season. For Mosinee, I think that was it. This is what they needed to do because we've talked about it, and it's not any secret that they're a very good basketball team, but they've left the playoffs earlier than I'm sure coaches, players, the program wanted to the last couple of years. So for them to bounce back, get Merrill, and then turn around and go on the road, I believe it was on the road in Channel,
yes, it
was. And go get the regional final win over there. That's a big deal, and they're getting point production out of Stoffel and Jershely. And for Medford, what can you say? They're just steady. They win the conference at 12-0. They're 22-4 right now, and they set for another matchup against which again we'll always talk about later, but against La Crosse Central.
Yep.
In that sectional semi. So kind of what you're expecting Medford to do and see how they get that point production out of the 3 heavy hitters that they have in double-digit scoring.
One team that did not get as far as they wanted to from the GNC was Northern Pines in Division 3. Pines on Friday in the regional semis knocked off Wrightstown 56-47. Griffin Stemke 14, Gabe Smith 13, Ryan Munch 12, and Miles McCandless 10 for Pines in that game. But then on Saturday in the regional final, they traveled to number 2 seeded Little Chute and fell 60-49. So obviously, I think it's probably a little disappointing because they were a team that came close to state a year ago. They have so many seniors that have lifted that program to heights it has not seen before. Ultimately, their season ends in the regionals.
Well, it's a tough one when those guys some of them have been playing since they're freshmen up on the varsity, and you build that bond with these guys that are in your class since 5th grade, and then everybody has these dreams and hopes and aspirations of how it's going to finish out, and you play that out in your mind, and then when you fall a little short, it's something that I'm sure that makes you tougher in life, but something at the same point it's a regret, and people have enough of those. So for them, overall great season, battled hard in that conference, finished at 20-6, 10-2 overall, and those guys I'm sure have left their mark on that school, if not as a group in that area, but just falling a little short, but not the bad competition. I mean, I think they were the 3. Would you say Little Chute was the 2 or the 1?
The 2.
Yeah, so they got beat by a higher seed, which technically, if the numbers are right, is supposed to happen. But those kids, just a battle. I got to watch them play against Newman earlier in the season. Very good basketball team.
Absolutely. And now we have to be careful. Division 4. We got he'll come in here and jump in here and tell us we're all wrong. Division 4. It's a lot of Merrillwood South competition, to say the least.
Can I stop you? Since he's sitting here, Coach Jacobson's here already. I am just always thankful that earlier in my career, we would have big enough population where we would slide into that bracket, and I think we must have had celebrations for like 3 months straight once we got to go to Division 5 and get out of that bracket, because you see those guys enough in the season, everybody knows how hard that conference is. Anyways, so we'll talk about that later, though.
Top of the bracket, Marathon number 1 seed on Friday. They did knock off number 9 Westfield by a score of 76-49. Grant Warren had another big night, 27 points, 11 rebounds. He cracked the 1,000-point mark in his career, the 11th player in Marathon boys basketball history, and the first to do it as a junior. Mason Seehafer added 15, Tyler Underwood 13. And also in that part of the bracket on Friday, Stratford, the number 4 seed, defeated Necedah by a score of 55-38. Brady Schmidt had 24 points in that game. Ashton Wrench, 13 for the Tigers. Bottom of the bracket, Edgar, the number 6 seed, almost made it an all-Merrillwood Conference South regional finals, but they fell at Wyowega Fremont, the number 3 seed, 44-42. Justin Davis had 13. Tegan Street had 10 for the Edgar Wildcats. And Auburndale all over number 7 seeded Princeton Green Lake on Friday, 74-23. Alex Wilfert had 12. Evan Scholl 11 for the Eagles. And then in the regional finals on Saturday, Marathon played Stratford. Stratford came out really tough. They took a 9-point lead in the first half. The Raiders got it back to even at halftime, and then a quick start to the second half. Marathon took the lead for good, winning 59-43. Grant Warren, 23 points, 19 rebounds. Tyler Underwood, 15 points as well for Marathon. Ashton Wrench had a good night. He really stepped up in the first half to help Stratford take the lead. He finished with 20 points in the game. So Marathon advances to sectionals, as does Auburndale. Auburndale on Saturday defeated Wyowega Fremont 64-48. Caden Weinferder 27 points. Mason White Eagle 19. So Marathon in Auburndale yet again. But to get to that point, they took care of business.
Well, and what can you say? I mean, I'm obviously biased as Coach Jacobson. It's the best small conference in the state. They just go after each other. Then they have to fight to get through each other to get that state run again and get down there. And just well-coached teams, good players, very respected programs, and it shows as these teams go after each other with the number of wins they can still accumulate while beating up on each other, plus the damage they can do in the playoffs, and it just shows the great competition within that conference. And I think you knew that they were going to get the job done. I know I texted you over the week when we were following some of the games, and I was hoping that Edgar only lost by 2. I was hoping it was all those 4 teams, because even 3 out of the 4 says a lot again that they're all in that regional final, going after each other and battling hard. And they those first round games they took, but to get in that regional final was I think a big deal. And again, it takes at this point, you have to have your consistency, you have to have your strong play, you have to have guys doing the job they're supposed to do in that organization, and fight and drive all needs to be there. And I guess with Marathon going through Stratford again, it's never easy to see teams and coaches that know each other so well, and to go get that win for Warren to put up that 1,000 point. I think that's incredible as a junior, especially with a program for Marathon that's so rich in tradition and history. To be the first junior to do that, that's a big deal. For Auburndale to continue, that's steadiness. They beat some teams they should, and that you'll see the battle on Thursday. And for Stratford, Coach Schmidt always, I think, gets a little more out of the guys, as they keep going than maybe what their athleticism and skill set always show. He puts them in the right spots, and they finished 13-12 and gave some good battles down the stretch. And I just think it says a lot when you have 4 teams out of one conference, 3 out of 4 teams in that regional final.
And finally, Division 5, 1 and 2 get there in the top of sectional number 2. Newman Catholic, as expected, but Assumption shipped into a big halftime deficit, made it a little tighter than maybe people thought on Friday. Newman knocked off Assumption 66-55 in that game. Mason Prey had 23 points. Eli Gustafson, 15 for the Cards. Nick Lieberg, 22. Ryan Shaw, 17 for the Royals. Then Newman Catholic on Saturday got past Columbus Catholic in a game that was closer than the final score would indicate, 72-53. Newman pulled away late. Prey 26, Isaac Sei 17. Emmett Konishki had 25 for the Dons. Blake Jacoby 14 as Newman avenges that sectional semifinal loss of a year ago. And Pacelli got there by knocking off Marion easily by a score of 68-29. It was 46-10 at halftime. And then they knocked off Port Edwards, 66-45. Port, the number 6 seeded, upset number 3 seeded Athens on Friday. Athens had a 31-20 lead at halftime. Then Port came charging back to win 53-49. But Pacelli was too much. Conference rivals. It was the 3rd meeting of the season between Pacelli and Port, and Pacelli made it 3 in a row with that win. Camden Shirk had 21 points and 7 rebounds. Logan Meyer had 18. Jaden Awe 17 for a balanced Pacelli team. So I think, as expected, Pacelli and Newman earning their way through that regional.
Yeah, being the 1 and 2, the way with numbers, it's supposed to play out that way. Going back to the regional semi with Assumption, I was at that game, and Assumption, it looked like they were always going to break a little bit, and then they just did what they do. They're scrappy, and they don't go away sometimes, and they just keep coming at you. And Newman lulled a little bit offensively, and that was what put that game a little closer when it looked like it was going to be a blowout for Newman. Getting the next game was important. They had to come back, and you wanted to get Columbus Catholic next time, but no shortage of Coach Konishki knowing what to do and being prepared and throwing everything at you, even extending the game quite a bit through trying to draw some extra fouls and things like that. So much closer than the score represented, because Newman was able to control the basketball at the end, not turn it over, get fouled, and put some of their best shooters at the line, which extended that lead a little bit. But they played Columbus Catholic played really well too. So I think it's going to be a war. You got some similarities in terms of some scoring punches, some teams that have done well in their conference season, and again, I think at this point there's going to be some factor. Newman obviously has a bunch of seniors, which can be, they're all very skilled as it is, but it's also a deadly group when you have that you're done if you don't win out, and we'll see what Pacelli can do, especially with the pace Newman's able to play at. One of the things I thought that extended the Columbus lead too a little bit was just how quickly a couple times they got the ball up the floor. It was boom, boom, and they're going past people, and Columbus is athletic, and they usually run up and down the floor really well. So I thought Newman was impressive that night on doing that stuff.
We're going to take a break and then come back, have our first guest for this evening, the head boys basketball coach at Marathon High School, head coach Adam Jacobson. He's coming up next as we continue here on the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes. Again, we're chock full of guests tonight. In the second hour at 7 o'clock, we'll have Newman Catholic senior guard Isaac Sei, and also Wausau West girls basketball coach Tom Weinkoff at 7:20. But right now, our first guest of the evening from Marathon High School, the head boys basketball coach of the Red Raiders, Adam Jacobson. And Coach, first of all, always great to have you come on by.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
And the thing is, we weren't not having you on, but we always are so confident that you're going to make a nice deep run that we like to save you for late as we get into the playoffs. But it is such an exciting time. And before we talk about the playoffs itself, about the season, I remember the first game of the year. I mean, you guys always start late, so it's like, we're waiting to see what does Marathon have this season. And the thing was, you had a really good team a year ago. You had some really good seniors a year ago, and there was a feeling, you got Grant Warren, who's going to obviously be an improved player and the kind of size that we don't see too often. But who else was going to step up? And boy, your guys right from the start really came into the season looking like a team that had played together a whole lot going into the campaign. I know we talked about this early in the season, but what was the thoughts about going into this year in terms of trying to replace quite a bit of production?
Yeah, you always have question marks, especially when you lose 4 seniors. But I really thought a lot of the building blocks were in the summer, and we played a lot of challenging teams throughout the summer, and we're so fortunate with the UWMC and the Wausau West summer leagues and that. But like Grant said when he was on earlier in the year, a lot of these guys had played together in various levels, and they know each other well, and they're a close-knit group. But Grant took a massive jump, from his freshman year to sophomore year to junior year. But then we got a lot of consistency with guys like Tyler Underwood and Cooper Hexma and Drew Love, who's a 3-year player. And then from there, Mason Seehafer came in and has really fulfilled his role. And then off the bench, we've had some guys step up and some youth step up. And then that builds in practice, and then the confidence builds. So, yeah, you're wondering, how's it all going to shake out? But I really, really like our consistency. And a big part of it is, sometimes understanding who you are and understanding who you aren't. And I think we've had tremendous growth in maybe understanding who we aren't. And that's helped us grow along the way.
And Coach, I just, from what I, witnessed when I coached against you, from what I witnessed when just watching your team, there's always a consistency there. It seems like the players have expectations. They're going to go get it. They're gonna do it based on who they are and how everybody intermingles and does it as a team. I know there's not an exact blueprint always, because you're dealing with different personalities. You're dealing with high school kids. You have injuries. All this stuff can come up, and it doesn't always go the way it's planned. But what have been some of the strong features of your program? Because I I could label with a bunch, resiliency. They're dedicated. They're disciplined. I mean, that's what I see from when I was fortunate enough to be coaching against you. Well, I got maybe unfortunate at the same time because it's hard to win. But as much as I watched the couple times I saw Newman and you guys play or watched you play throughout this season, that doesn't waver. Where do you think, what do you build upon and do to make that happen?
Well, I appreciate that. And consistency is a big word we talk about often, and we have a bedrock of our program, and that's 5 core standards. It's an attitude of toughness, it's team character, it's a championship work ethic, humility, and unity. And, we harp on that a lot, and those are the building blocks of, and to be a consistent team, it's kind of going off of what, the old Dick Bennett thing, eliminate losing. You try to simplify the game, eliminate the variables that are going to allow you to make plays that wouldn't allow you to win. And being around the high school game a lot of times teams lose games more than they win games. And to try to eliminate that and give yourself the opportunity in the end to win the game is big. But yeah, we have kids who are very dedicated through our summer program and throughout and want to be good and want to compete in a very, very difficult conference and knowing that if you can compete in this league, you have a chance in March. And just to take it day by day, practice by practice, and just find a way to get better no matter where you're at. But yeah, like I said, those 5 core standards we harp on a lot, and I think the kids really hone in on it. And in humility, in this day and age, where and that's what's so great about being a part of a team, right? It's got to be bigger than yourself, and it's beyond just me. And it's not thinking of myself any less. It's just thinking of myself less often, right? And that's really a statement of this group. Boy, do they share the ball and make the extra pass, and are just so happy with their teammates' success, and that is definitely something that stands out when you watch this group.
How much is stability, though, as well? I think in watching a lot of programs around Central Wisconsin in different sports, boy, when there's not stability, when there's always a lot of change, marathon basketball has been so stable in terms of yourself as the head coach and the people that work with you, and even on the girls' side with Coach Schneider. I mean, it feels like there's so much stability at marathon that we don't see in too many other places.
It's interesting you brought that up. I was actually thinking about that on the drive over. Obviously Claude has been with us now, close to 40 years.
You can tell him I said a million.
Yeah.
A million, but go ahead.
Yeah, and Phil Seibert has been with me from the start, and Chuck Wolfel's now been with us for 6-7 years, and then Todd Stoffel, who just got out recently but had been with us since the beginning, and Alex Bloom, our JV2 coach, he's been either a player or a coach in the program every year since I've been here. And then it even goes back, I still talk to Reiki, and I still talk to Jack, and I still talk to Bob Tess, and a lot of guys that just have been a part of this program from the very beginning. You have Coach Weinkoff on later on, and he's from the 70s. So we talk about it a lot. It's a proud past and a promising future, and I really think kids really want to be a part of that and grow on that tradition. And I'm just very, very thankful to be a part of it. Very, very a lot of gratitude with that.
Well, just before we can always go future back with the conference. Just take the we talk about what a great conference that is, and how I guess I'm looking for the word. Maybe how big a deal has it been that the North has gotten stronger?
Yeah.
I mean, so you got the South that we always talk about, everybody beating each other up. You got to come with your best game. There's no time off. You cannot rest when you have a conference game in the Merriwood South. And now the North got better. So even take that into account with your schedule. And then you guys how big is your schedule, I guess? How big a deal is that setting that up the way you guys do it?
I think it really, really matters. Like you said, we start that, we do that for a reason. I think our beginning is for a reason. The Merriwood South, you're getting just night in and night out. You're going to be battle tested. And then the North being stronger is huge. So you got 16 quality Merriwood games. So that leaves you 8, right? And then for us to be able to play Mosinee, I mean, what an environment this past year in that game. And then Colby was a conference champion on the road at their place. And we're going to play Pacelli next year. And then, we're going to go do the Concordia thing. So we put a lot of, we want to challenge ourselves. I want to see different styles. You want to do, so that all matters into your body work. Like we went and played Port Washington. Their record was what it was, but I mean, they're one of the better teams we played all year. That style and that speed. You want to talk about transition? Wow, how they got up and down the floor. So, and that makes you better. Win, lose, or draw, however it shakes out. So, yeah, I think there's a lot that goes into it and a lot that can build you, hopefully, so you can play your best basketball now.
when you go back to the first game of the year.
Yeah.
You played Auburndale. Well, you're going to see them again tomorrow. But again, going into holy cow, you're playing Auburndale the first game of the year, and they were expected to be really good, and they were really good based on what they've done. What did that tell you, and what did that mean to the guys to get that first game?
Yeah, I think that was huge. Going in there, we went in there confident to play our best. However, it shook out, right? Nothing ends the first game of the year, anything like that, and then to go out there and play at a very high level initially, I think really kind of, okay, wow, yeah, we can be okay, and then to build from that, and then now come full circle. Here we are, in the sectional round playing each other. But yeah, it gained a lot of confidence. That's going to change now because the Merriwood South changed it. It's going to be a non-conference game now. They moved it to the back end of the year, so you're not going to open with a Merriwood South game. But that was the last year of that this year. But yeah, that was a big game early. But you talk. To be a conference champion, oftentimes you got to be consistent throughout. Every game's for a conference championship, whether it's the first or the last, especially in this league. So it just happened to be a big one right away.
And how, just I guess looking at seeing Auburndale again. I mean, I don't know unless you're in that moment if people actually understand. We've seen these guys multiple times over the year. They've got the same coaches. They've got similar systems that they run that they tweak maybe from year in year based on their players a little bit. But at the core, it's still what they believe in and their philosophies. At this point, is there more wrinkles you want to throw? And you just because you got two philosophies. I think you can go into those games when you see these teams so many times and say, "Hey, we're doing our thing. We're going to do our thing better than we ever have, and we're going to do it to the best of our ability, and that's going to take us." Or we got these little wrinkles. I mean, are you a guy that weighs that out? Are you a guy that this is what we are and we're going to continue to be that?
Well, I think you're kind of prepared for both ends of the spectrum, right? You got to be who you are, but you also got to be prepared for that. You have to adjust to what they may do, and they may have to adjust. So it's going to be a game of adjustments for sure. But Coach Weinford does a tremendous job. They're a very senior heavy team with a tremendous amount of talent, and they're going to be very ready for the way they're going to play. And hopefully we go out and we can play our best basketball as well. But yeah, in having your league and then having to go through your league again in the term you're expecting that all right, you got the first, or we want the third one. This is my 12th year, and I think this will be the 6th time we're playing Auburndale for a third time. And Stratford, how many times we played them for the third time. So you have to go out there and play your best basketball when it matters most.
And I told Coach Weinfurt that you're going to be on the show, and he said, tell Jacobson to be ready for 6 guys on the court at one time. But in seriousness, do you do anything differently too now that you're in the you can start getting to bigger gyms in these sectionals? Any thing that you think is valuable to prepare your kids for that little bigger just a bigger area? There could be some wrinkles there with that.
We'll put crowd noise in and stuff like that in practice, and but the warm up is going to be crucial tomorrow. I tell our guys, when that first horn sounds and you enjoy it, you earned that, right? I mean, that's going to give you chills. I mean, enjoy that. But when and then embrace your 15-minute warm up, get your surroundings, and then when that second horn comes, it's a basketball game. Something you've done now will be your 27th time this year. So narrow in and play your best.
Again, we're talking to Adam Jacobson, the Marathon High School boys basketball coach here on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. And along those same lines, you've said to me many times, I think, about big games, big atmospheres, and how fortunate you and your program is because you play a number of those during the regular season. Mm-hmm. You talked about, conference championship games right from the very beginning. I mean, literally the first game of the year. You knew right there that was going to be one that ultimately would have a big impact. And then, of course, the 2 games against Newman, the second battle with Auburndale, the games against Edgar, always intense as well, is the fact that during the course of a season, you have those opportunities. The Mosinee game, you said as well. Does that make you more prepared, as good as you can be prepared for situations like you're going to see tomorrow night?
Absolutely. We played in a regional final on Saturday, but hopefully to our kids and in their mind, they played in 6 of them to that point in some of those games that you rattled off. So being in those environments, and we're very, very fortunate to have the community support we have. I mean, we play in front of big crowds often. The change tomorrow will be maybe a little bit of Marshfield's massive and things like that. But
Marshfield is unique, isn't it?
Right. So you're going to have to get used to that quickly. But to play in those environments and play in the big games and play with a lot of pressure, that's and hopefully to them, pressure is a privilege, right? You've earned this. This is a reward to get to be able to have that support and those people out there to cheer you on tomorrow night. And hopefully we get galvanized and embrace that opportunity.
You mentioned some of the guys. Let's go back and again talk about some of your players. Let's start with Grant Warren, because you talked about the leaps that he's been able to make. What have been the keys for him, both last season and this season, to allow him to grow as a player? Because you don't see that all the time. Mm-hmm. Some guys don't plateau at times, but he has. He's a different player than he was last year. Last year he was a different player than he was the year before. What's allowed him to continue to grow at a very impressive rate?
Well, I think he's highly competitive, and he really wants to be good and play at a high level. And going into it from a skill standpoint, he shoots it tremendously well. He's athletic. He's got tremendous patience in the post, I think, so he can get his catch and feel and make his play. He's such a willing passer. A really good rebounder. Defensively, I think he affects the game on that end very, very well. Rim protects, runs the floor well. So they're just all things I think that he's grown at. I think he's got good base and good strength in the post, and teams are bodying him and banging him, and he doesn't let that bother him. So those are all great things, and now he's adding the dribble and making plays off there and off the face-up and the Sigma, and the sky's the limit. I mean, the growth he could make if he makes that same growth from this past year to this year and that to the next year, he could be a heck of a player.
Well, Coach, the thing I've often, again, the few times I've seen you play, and what I really liked about your team is, on paper, on statistics, you can see what Warren does, statistically. You see that. But the beauty of that, like you said, is the extra pass, or it goes through him, but everybody else is involved and always knows that things are going to happen.
Sure.
And I think that makes you dangerous, because it's like the teams come up and say, yeah, we're going to keep that guy in check, but then he'll elevate his game or adjust it, and everybody becomes involved. And I watched that a little bit against Newman in the conference championship game, where you're sliding guys in that box and one, and these other guys are finding their opening, and he's getting his touch, or he's sinking down and drawing a couple defenders that's opening up somebody else. And how big a deal is that for, or speak of the rest of the kids that find their way in niche, and those individuals too that bring so much to the table, just even though on paper, that's the first numbers that draw your attention. But I personally think, and you I'm sure agree, there's so much more to this team with all the guys that you have that can be very dangerous and win games for you.
Right. You're saying that, Grant's 24 and 14, but I think we're very balanced. Yeah. He's a willing and able passer, and Drew Love running things and sharing, and Tyler Underwood kind of that Swiss Army knife, and Cooper space on the floor and shooting, and Mason running the floor. I mean, yeah. I think we're at our worst when it's forced, right? When it's where we're like, oh, we got to get it in here, we got to. But when we're perpetual motion and moving and playing off the skip and the third-sided attacks, and I think that's when we're at our best, and Mason's slash into the hoop, and and you've seen that. Mason's had a 20-point game, Tyler's had a 20-point game, Cooper's had a 20-point game, Drew Love's had a 20-point game, Grant's had. We've had guys come off the bench and score double figures. So yeah, I completely agree. We are at our best when we are balanced and make the extra pass, and I think the guys are so willing to do that and take what is there, identify it, and play off of it.
And Saturday, I think that probably the greatest example is early in the game, Grant was playing great, and you were down by 9. It's when your other guys started to be part of it in a bigger way that really turned that game around. And you talk about, you go back to the Newman game where Cooper was 7 points more than his season high. He had his season high up to that point was 14. He gets 21 points in the biggest game of the year.
Sure.
The ability not only to be a part of it, but when the chips are down, to see multiple players step up is also something there's different ways to step up. When it's the low pressure,
moments,
these guys, and it's not easy when you're not the number one target all the time, that you're not going to get 5 shots to get into a rhythm.
Sure.
You better be going right away, and that seems like your guys are able to kind of get into the flow rather quickly.
Yeah, the Newman, I think we had 42 second and a half points, and Grant had 4 of them. And so that's just stepping up at making big plays when needed. I think it goes to a lot of they're multi-sport athletes. A lot of these guys like a Cooper and a Tyler and a Daniel and a Grant, they went to the state baseball tournament as freshmen. And Drew Love and Mason and these guys, with the football team, and they're multi-sport athletes and have been in big moments. And I think they have a high basketball IQ and just are ready to rise to the occasion. And hopefully we can tomorrow night.
And you think there's one big asset or element that will be your, guys, if we do this, this is going to be our game tomorrow. This is who we have to.
Sure.
Who we have to be or continue to be. Is there an element of that you've been preaching to them, that we do this, we're going to be what we want to be tomorrow?
Well, I know Chad's saying the same thing. Rebounding is going to be huge tomorrow. I know that the ability to be able to maybe get some second chances or hold the other team to one shot is going to be crucial. So rebounding both ways is going to be big. I'd like to see us be the aggressor. Play confident, handle the environment early, valuing the possession and what that all entails for us each and every play on both ends of the floor, defensively and offensively. But yeah, it's just play hard, play smart, and play to the best of your ability, and hopefully we can do that tomorrow.
And of course, I know that it's all about tomorrow, but I got to ask you, because St. Mary Catholic is somebody who's out of the area, and we don't really know them. You have to have noticed them. Just noticing that. What do you know about them? I mean, Crivets is also there, but St. Mary Catholic has kind of been,
Sure.
in the rankings. What do you know about them? Just out of curiosity from me. Not for you, because I know you're not thinking
One
about
game
it.
at a time.
I know.
Yeah. Well, they're very talented. They what is it? I think 6 of their top 7 are seniors. Starts with Olbrink. He's a 6'5", 6'6" kind of wing player going to St. Norbert's. And they shoot a lot of threes. A lot of threes. And they like to play a high possession game, as you can see by their scores. We'll play some zone to try to speed you up to get you back there. But they're a very talented team. Like we said, when it came with Lourdes or Ron Colley, I'd love the opportunity to worry about them, right?
Right.
So, hopefully, one of the, hopefully it can be us, and someone from the Marywood South will be playing in that game to try to give their best opportunity.
Anything else, Jeff?
No questions, but Coach, just want to congratulate you. But that conference is to get that conference title is such an achievement. I know the coaches, the players, the parents, the surrounding people within that program know how hard or how appreciate how much work is put into that. But I hope the outliers and people that just hear that you're the conference champions and the 20+ wins and being in the sectional semi right now, the amount of effort and time, and just as a credit to your coaches, your players, your program, and hopefully that's always appreciated, even outside your the close-knit group you have. But just an outstanding job this season. Wish you the best of luck tomorrow.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, and thank you guys for everything you do for high school basketball in Central Wisconsin.
And I believe the stability too is something that's to be underlined again, because I think for the student athletes to have the stability within your program, to know that you're going to be there and Coach Cyber's going to be there and the rest of the staff that you've talked about. I think that, boy, when there's a lot of change within athletics, and right in this era right now, we see so much change. I think to see someone like yourself and your staff, I think it's good for the kids and it's good for the program. So congrats on your because I know it's not easy. I mean, again, but it's something we probably should get into more often sometime, because there's so much involved in it, and to do it for how many years? 12
years, yeah.
Oh, time flies, doesn't it?
It's crazy.
Hey, good luck tomorrow.
Thank you. I appreciate it, guys.
Coach Adam Jacobson of the Marathon Red Raiders. We're going to take a break. We're going to talk a bit about what's been going on the girls' side in just a few moments here on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes. Again, thanks to Adam Jacobson, the Marathon boys basketball coach, for joining us. And we'll talk more about the matchup with Auburndale later. But just that program, and I, you know it as well. When there's stability within a program, it makes it so much easier. And you see that with Marathon, the way that they have that stability. And I think that is such a big factor in their consistent success.
Well, definitely, yeah. Having the same coach there, that it makes the connection with the athletes is a big deal. Just that because those athletes will want to play for that person will want to put their heart and soul on the line for the kids. And I think anything with consistency is a big deal. And I think you even got that extra element of merit, just their tradition. From it started in the 70s that runs through where there's expectations set for every year. I think is also huge on top of what Coach Jacobson and his staff does for that program.
Let's talk about the girls. Last week, Division I, we had one area team make it to the sectionals. Wausau West, number 7 seed. They faced off with number 3 seeded Hortonville last Thursday night in a sectional semi in Stevens Point that we had right here on Bow Falls Radio. And it was a 24-22 game late in the first half. Then a late run by Hortonville gave them a 14-point lead at half, and they never were threatened after that, beating the Warriors 69-41. Molly Anderson had 16 points, 10 boards for the Warriors. Rainey Wilson, who is a sophomore, had 18 for Hortonville. She was just getting warmed up. She had 41 points in their win against Neenah in the sectional final. But for Wausau West, once it got sideways, it's so hard against a really good team to erase a pretty big deficit, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. Once the other team starts rolling, they're knocking down the shots. Rim gets a lot tighter. Mistakes become that much more detrimental to what you're trying to accomplish, both offensively and defensively. And for West with that transition and score, just a lot tougher, like you said, to come back against a good team. You want to be hanging around. You don't want to be down by a lot once you get deeper into the playoffs.
We'll have more about the Warriors and their girls' season with Tom Weinkoff coming up a little bit later on in the program. Division II, Lakeland earns a trip to state. I think that's been the goal for that program for the last couple of years, to get there before Juliana Wilmette graduates, and the Miss Wisconsin basketball finalist led her team to the sectional championship. First in the sectional semis last Thursday, number 2 Lakeland, number 1 New London. It was all Lakeland in that game at Anago, 77-46. Juliana Wilmette had 23 points, 12 assists, and 8 rebounds. Christina Wilmette had 20 points and 7 boards. Sailor Timmerman, 17 points, 13 rebounds. And then they advanced to a sectional final against the number 1 seeded Menominee. And it was a thriller. Went right down to the wire. In the end, Lakeland 60, Menominee 59. And really, it was Juliana Wilmette that took her team on her shoulders that day. Nobody else was in double figures. She had 30 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds, 4 steals. I guess if you have a senior at that level, you expect her to lead the team. Frankly, I'm surprised they were able to win without more from some of the other players, but she really did carry them over the finish line.
Well, and again, we've mentioned a couple times throughout the show already how the seniors, when you're on the verge of graduation and your season ending, and this is it, and you just players take over, different people show up, teams fight a little bit differently. That when you weren't expected them to do that, and for her, this is some players, these are the moments they wait for. You might not get everything you want along the way, but you want to finish it with no regrets left. You want to make sure you left no stone unturned to do what you could accomplish to get as far as you and your team were able to do. So I think, correct me if I'm right, Menominee was the one that was at the team that knocked them out last year too. Yeah. So they redeemed that loss there in a tight one, and sometimes it just takes that one player and their scoring punch to carry it through when other players might be struggling, and we've talked about them from the beginning of the season to get that one more game, and they're 22-6, and we'll talk about Pewaukee probably later on.
Division 4, there was one team from the area, Phillips from the Merriwood North. And they lost the heartbreaker in overtime to Colfax in the sectional semis, 67-56. They had a 1-point lead with 8 seconds to go. Terrific inbounds play by Colfax led to a foul. They made 1 of 2 and then dominated the OT. For Phillips, it's back-to-back years where they made sectionals. Last year they made, I think, the sectional final.
Yep.
It came up just short, and now this season comes up just short as Colfax turned into a bit of a Cinderella as they went on to defeat the previously undefeated Neilsville in the sectional final. But for Phillips, it's been a good run. They had a really good year, but again, just coming up a little bit short.
Well, yeah, to 22-4, 12-2 conference or tied for conference champions in the Merriwood North girls, and again, it shows you how heavy one play can become. I mean, he had the game, and you give up
one
that,
stop.
Yeah,
one stop.
Yeah, and you don't get that one play sometimes, and those are the kickers that even after all of what you accomplished to make it that far in their run, to do it back-to-back years, to be conference champions, it's sometimes that one play that can haunt you a little bit, and the one that's sometimes the one you remember.
And finally, Division 5, there was a Merriwood Conference South showdown in the sectional semis. And Edgar knocked off Assumption by 2, 38-36. Michaela Workus, 13. Reagan Borkhardt, 11 for the Wildcats. And Schooley, 12 for the Royals. And then Edgar made it to the sectional final, but fell to Wabeno Leona, 53-43. Reagan Borkhardt, 13 points in that game for Edgar. But Edgar played really well coming down the stretch, and to beat Assumption, who had been to the state tournament a few times in a row, Big win for Edgar. Tough way to end for Assumption.
Yeah, that was one of the teams we talked about, just the peaks usually end, but they were really peaking at the right time, playing strong down the stretch, not only in their conference schedule, but in what damage they were able to do in the playoffs. They beat Athens in the regional final, which was another very good win for the Edgar Wildcats. And so Coach McCarty and his girls should be very commended on the job they did, and then to knock off the conference champions in the sectional semi, and they lost to a very good Wabena Leona team. Maybe by the final score was 10, but it was much closer than reflected. So very good season for them, and a very good way that they finished out.
We'll talk about the girls' state tournament that begins tomorrow a little bit later in the program, but first we have to take a quick timeout and then come back with our next guest from Newman Catholic High School, their outstanding senior guard, Isaac Sei. We'll have Isaac coming up here on the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, bullfallsradio.com, and mobile device. And welcome back. It is hour number 2 of the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Coming up in about 20 minutes or so, we'll be joined by Wausau West girls basketball coach Tom Weinkoff. But first, our student-athlete guest for this week from Newman Catholic High School, outstanding senior guard, Isaac Sei. Isaac, thanks for coming on over.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Let's talk big picture, because it's not that many players get an opportunity to play for 4 years as much as you have. I mean, right from your freshman season, you were out on the court as part of the varsity team. How has that been an advantage for you in the development of your game over the last 4 years, having the opportunity as a very young player to go through some bumps and bruises? That first year was a bit of a tough one in terms of wins and losses. How did that help you grow as a player?
Yeah, no, that's big time playing early as a freshman. I mean, you get used to the physicality, especially of the Marywood Conference, playing guys like Ben Barton and I forgot his first name, but Vaughn. Those were two of the biggest guys I've ever seen, even to this day. So just being able to kind of use the freshman year experience of those big guys and kind of become the bigger guys in your conference, and instead of receiving the physicality, kind of dishing it out to other teams.
And how about just look, reflecting on yourself as a player from the time you were a freshman? Always, I think part of your game was always, the shooting was always a big part of your game. You could shoot the ball and shoot it well, obviously. Anything that you've really strived in your high school career to say, hey, this is another part of my game I really want to improve upon and make a big factor?
Yeah, I know. Ever since Coach Marcourt from sophomore year, when he came in, he preached to me, like the 3, but love the 2, and I kind of been using that since sophomore year because everyone knew that I was a shooter in our conference. So being able to attack closeouts and score that way and dish to my open teammates has been a big help to my success, I guess.
Let's touch on that. You mentioned Coach Marquardt, and now you got Coach Waldvogel. You started with Coach Garrett. I mean, to go through 3 coaches during the course of your varsity career, how has that been? I mean, obviously, you learn different things from different coaches. You see different ways of doing things with different coaches. How do you look at that, having so much change during the course of your career?
Yeah, like you said, in some ways it can be an advantage because you learn different things from different coaches. So when you got 3 guys sharing what they know about basketball with you, you can kind of learn more and more quickly that way, instead of just having like, this is the way you're going to do it and this is the only way to do it. So in that way, it's been great. And even with Coach Waldvogel this year, he hasn't really tried to change much because he came in really late. So he's done a great job of just kind of seeing what he had and adjusting to us instead of us having to adjust to him.
And you got this guy you could talk to as well.
Yeah, no, I try to just stay out of the way and not tell him anything's going to screw him up. How about, I always find it fun, and I think the coolest thing is, from when I played, even when I coach, all that is the relationships you make along. I mean, you log, if you look at the hours and the time spent from the time you guys are playing youth basketball to middle school basketball to high school basketball, and it could be in multiple sports or just, and in a smaller high school like you guys are in. how big a factor is that to have that connection with these guys where you guys have just put a tremendous amount of time and effort and guys are on the same page with what they want to accomplish? How big a deal are those connections you made with the guys that are in your senior class? Let's put it that way.
Yeah, no, that's huge. One of the biggest advantages of going to Newman is being able to see the guys you play with every day for the entire school day. That kind of translates over to the court and like just also playing with each other for the past 8 to 10 years. That's just a huge way, and I guess how we're able to compete on the floor, and we kind of know what each other is doing.
And how much fun is it to play the way you play? Because I'll come back with one of the people I know that I went to school with that's alumni and haven't seen you guys play yet. And they're like, wow, it was a lot of fun because just the pace and the speed you play with, the way you guys, I think, which is a huge asset, the way you guys can get down the floor so quickly and different guys, the extra pass can score in bundles. How much fun is that to play the style you play?
Yeah, it's a blast because on any given night, any one of the starters or even a guy like Thomas can get hot and go off for a lot of points. So it's fun going into each game not really knowing who's going to be the guy that night, but as a team we do a great job finding out who that guy is and getting him the ball that specific night.
Last 2 years, your team had so much success during the regular season and then had disappointing losses to wrap up the year. Was there a sense of pressure, or was there a sense of a job that's not quite done going into this season? What was the thought process for you and your other seniors? Because, I mean, this is a senior-laden basketball team that's had a lot of minutes of varsity basketball. What was the attitude going into this season?
Yeah, going into the season, we all kind of had a chip on our shoulder. None of us like to lose. We're all very competitive, and I think that's one of the reasons why we have been so successful throughout our careers. But going into this year, we knew, like, this is our senior year. There's really nothing to lose. So I think we've been able to use that, and that's why we've been so successful this far.
How sweet was beating Columbus last Saturday?
That was huge. I was a little scared going into the game because I know if they get hot, like, it can be anyone's game. So it was huge to get a win and kind of show that we're a different team than last year. Like, we beat the team that took us down last year. Now
and before Jeff jumps in, you mentioned before we went on the air the atmosphere of having a full house. We haven't seen those full houses as many times as we would like to see, obviously. Yeah. But last week they had a standing room only and big crowd, big game. What was that like for you as a player?
That's huge. That's why you play the game. That's what I kept telling my teammates in the huddle. Like, this is why we play right here. This is what it's all about, bringing people together and trying to put on a show for them. And that's kind of why throughout the last 2 years we haven't lost a game at home, just because of the support that our fans and family and parents and friends all provide. It's huge in helping us win games.
Does the dome of Newman Catholic's gym go across the street tomorrow night?
I'm hoping.
Do you feel like, because I look at you guys and think, you're bonded as a team, you're tight with each other, so you know each other so well. You've been through a battle-tested schedule where you've played a lot of good non-conference games. Your conference gets you ready. You've seen just a very strong amount of basketball so far. Obviously that prepares you. Is there anything that you think? Is there stuff that is going to rattle you guys? How nervous you get? You think you're going to? Because you're going to walk into these games, I think, and you've been battle tested, and you guys are ready to go. Is it anything that can rattle you guys? Is it hard to rattle you?
Yeah, you said it, playing in the Merriwood, that's one of the tougher conferences, especially for small schools in the entire state. So it kind of gets us ready for playoffs because any given night you could lose if you don't bring your best game. So I think in that sense there isn't really anything we're not ready for. It's just a matter of if we can perform when we need to.
How about for yourself? Now, the best thing about going to West is it's in the backyard, and you guys have already played there. Because normally we talk to Coach Jacobson about going to the bigger gym. Is that an advantage that you've already played there once, you think, this year and big? Because sometimes I remember just from when I would coach, we talk about the bigger backdrops and we prepare for that because you're not when you look at the stage at Newman or the wall at Newman, and especially as a shooter, and then you got this open space behind the backboard. It's a little bit different depth perception. So, I think that better prepares you that you've already played in there and it's in the backyard.
I wouldn't say it's a huge advantage, but just because Pacelli's gym, they got a big backdrop behind their hoop too, so they're kind of already used to it, but it's definitely beneficial for us to having played with that backdrop before, so we're at least used to that.
Again, we're talking to Isaac Seidel from Newman Catholic High School here on the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Speaking of your games at Wausau West, I imagine one of your highlights was that game against Pines to get a walk-off, to drain one at the buzzer. Where does that rank in terms of your high school basketball memories?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely got to be one of the top ones. I remember when I went home that night, I was talking to my parents. I'm just like, that is not how I expected the start of the season to go. And we would have been in trouble if we didn't end up making that shot because I think Connor fouled out that game, and I think Thomas might have fouled out too, so we were already lower on guys. So, I mean, Coach trusted me with the ball in my hands, and I was able to knock down the shot for him.
Never a doubt. I got a picture of it even. Boom, right in the middle, because I knew it was going to go down.
I guess, and looking, any other games that have been highlighted? I mean, obviously, that's a fun one. You guys have had a lot of fun games, I think. Any other ones that have been just some fun memories for this season so far?
Yeah, definitely beating Columbus in the regional final the other night. That was one of the best games I've ever played in, and the atmosphere there was incredible. And then pretty much any time we play a marathon, it's always a good atmosphere, and each time we each want to beat each other really bad, but at the end of the day, we don't always win there, so it's always a good test to see where we're at.
Did you enjoy some of the competitiveness in those the Columbus game and the Columbus City one, not the Columbus Catholic one, and the Stoughton game, some of those tough games? Because I think it was pretty remarkable too, with all probably the mental and physical exhaustion of trying to play marathon that night over third place for the conference, and then you got to turn around and get up the next morning and you go down to Stoughton and play a good team and you win in OT. I mean, that's a lot of mental and physical effort, I think, on that part. How about those games? Any fun in those games that you had?
Yeah, for sure. Those games are a blast. One, because it's kind of a different style of play than it is here in central Wisconsin. So it's good to go play those bigger, more physical teams where fouls maybe aren't called as much. And then the Stoughton game, I thought that was a good testimony of where we're at as a team, to be able to bounce back after pretty much losing our conference championship hopes, to be able to go beat a really good Stoughton team. It kind of says a lot about us.
You had never mentioned to me about how difficult it was for me to broadcast the marathon game and then go all the way down and broadcast the Stoughton game and say how well I did that day.
I said you always broadcast well, but you got to give these guys are doing these are the inmates running the asylum. They're working hard.
That's a little softball.
Well, we appreciate you.
There you go.
We appreciate all you cover.
Isaac, let's talk about outside of basketball. Are you involved in any other sports?
Yeah, my main sport besides basketball is golf. I picked it up about 2 years ago, going just with guys like Mason and Connor and just going golfing, and it's kind of turned into one of my favorite things to do.
What is it with you guys in the golf? Do you guys have a lot of competitiveness when you hit the links?
Yeah, definitely. Every time we do some sort of game to whether it's a scramble or just a best ball, or we're always trying to get as many people as we can to come on the course with us and challenge us, whether it's even Connor and I, we play against our dad sometimes, and we're always talking trash to each other. So in that way, it's pretty fun.
How close are you to Connor? I know he's quite the golfsman.
Yeah, no, he's one of my best friends. He's been one of my best friends for the past 13 years almost. And yeah, we always go to spring break together and do things like that. So it's
How close are you in terms of the golf? Are you almost as good as he is? Because I know he's pretty good.
No, I'd say he's still a good amount better than me, but I'm doing my best to catch up to him.
What's your favorite class?
Favorite class? Well, this year we have a lifetime sports class, so that's been my favorite, where we get to do things like bowling and golfing, so that's been awesome. But other than that, we've had this intro to engineering classes here where you kind of learn how to do some craftier things, so I think that'll be good going forward.
Looking forward, obviously with the success you've had on the court, are you planning on continuing your basketball career at the next level?
Yeah, I recently decided to go to Concordia University in Mequon for both basketball and golf.
Oh.
So, yeah, looking forward to that.
That's one of the cool things, to be able to play multiple sports. I mean, sometimes they'll ask you to focus on one, but to have that opportunity to play two, I imagine something that was one of the draws, I would imagine, huh?
Yeah, going into it, the basketball coaches were really just talking to me like they want me to come play basketball, and then all of a sudden I had the golf coach reaching out to me. I'm just like, well, I've never really had to deal with this before. I don't know what questions to ask him, but it was kind of a unique experience in that way, and I'm excited to be able to golf in college.
And what do you think? I mean, you're a gym rat. You watch and play a ton of basketball. What do you think for your game personally? When you go to that next level, what's one of the things that you're going to want to, like, hey, I got to do this, or I'm going to do this, or this is something I'm going to have to take on to be able to find the success that you want at that next level when you play college basketball?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I've heard from asking those coaches and maybe even players at other colleges is the biggest thing is the physical side of things, like the strength and definitely the speed and agility, like the pace of play with the shot clock, just learning to adjust to all that. And I always getting good at defense too, because you got to be able to play defense at the next level.
Do you have based on your interest in high school, or maybe gravitating towards a different one subject more than another, do you have an area you'd like to major in, or still fairly undecided?
Yeah, I think I'm going to do something in the field of business. I'm a little undecided where I want to go with that yet, but I'm hoping to figure that out within my first couple of years there.
Going back to the court, I imagine the next few days are some of the biggest of your sports life. I mean, the opportunity to know that if you take care of business tomorrow and then take care of business Saturday, to have an opportunity to go to. We were talking earlier about things that you haven't, pretty much seen everything. The one thing you haven't seen is the 17,000 capacity Kohl Center.
Yeah.
The opportunity to get there next week, is that something when you're lying in bed in the dark thinking, oh, you dream about that?
Yeah, every year that's kind of the main goal, is to go get that gold ball at state. And the last couple of years I felt like we've had a chance to maybe go do that, but we've ended our season earlier than I felt we should have. So a big step I feel like was beating Columbus this year, and I think we have the tools that we need to go there and get a gold ball.
And this week you've been looking at Pacelli. What do you expect tomorrow? What are the biggest things for your team to be successful tomorrow night to earn a ticket to the sectional final?
We know that they like to pound it inside, so I think we got to take that away. But I don't want to share too much in case they're listening. But that's what I'll tell you for now.
Okay.
Well, and
yeah.
Okay. So we always
Unless
ask.
you have something else.
No, well, I was going to go that route.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So I was going to. You got some flexibility here.
So I was going to.
Do you want me to stop interrupting you?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So one of the things we like to ask seniors that are going to obviously, this is your moment. This is you graduate and high school basketball's done. And you gotta play every game like it's your last, and you want to get as many more out of this as you can. What for you? Let's do this twofold. What for you is going to be at the end of the day? What's going to be the best thing about playing high school basketball for you? Once it's all said and done, you get time to reflect on it. What would mean the most, or what meant the most to you in that time spent?
Yeah, I mean, what means the most to me is the relationships I've been able to build with my friends over the past few years just by playing basketball. But in terms of like awards and stuff like that, I think if we got the gold ball, that'd kind of be the cherry on top for my career, and that'd definitely be the thing I'm most proud about.
And you'll be the perfect one to answer this because you've played since you're a freshman, and been in that varsity rotation for 4 years. What do you think, if you had to give advice to a player coming in, whether it's an eighth grader, whether it's somebody in your program right now, to tell them that you need to do this to make the most of this, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you have to work hard to get where you want to get to, but the main thing I tell them is to capitalize on the opportunities that they're given. Every day that you go to practice, that's an opportunity to prove to the coach that you belong in the lineup and you can give good minutes for the team. And I think that's huge. If you can capitalize on those opportunities, you have a chance to play for all 4 years.
Isaac Sei, senior for Newman Catholic High School, 2-0 at the field house at West so far this year, trying to make it 3-0 tomorrow night against Pacelli Catholic. Look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow night, and best of luck.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Isaac Sei from the Cardinals. Coming up, we're going to take a quick timeout and then come back and talk to the head girls basketball coach of Wausau West High School, Tom Weinkoff. That's coming up here on the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio 98.9. And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes. Thanks again to Isaac Sei from the Newman Cardinals for joining us And now another guest. We're just keeping them coming on in here as we get towards the end of our season. But very happy to have back on the program the head girls basketball coach at Wausau West High School, Tom Weinkoff. And Coach, thanks for hopping on over.
Well, it's my pleasure. I enjoyed listening to you and talking to you guys.
I guess we'll start off big picture because this week is girls state basketball, and you've been so involved in state basketball going back to your days at Marathon where you're able to win 3 championships and then with 3 more championships at Newman Catholic. We were just talking about it. And I was saying that I got spoiled because you and your Newman teams would be going down to state almost every year. And by that, I get to go to states every year and have a good time myself. And then you said for the girls, it's such an experience. And for the girls that are going there for the next 3 days, could you talk about what the experience is like for the state basketball tournament?
Well, it's a terrific experience. The kids are treated so well for 3 days, and it's very special, but it's very special to them, and they're treated very special. And being there playing on, a college basketball court, you might say, and all these teams and all these people, you're playing in front of a big crowd, but the experience of being there and seeing all the enthusiasm and excitement, once you get there, you want to get there again.
Well, Coach, I got to imagine from your just from your marathon one to the ones you do, to the state championships at Newman, I assume they all have their unique experience, but still maybe the same excitement as a kid on Christmas going there again for the first with that group or that particular group. I imagine that never changes.
Oh, it never does. I mean, every year is a new year, and like you say, new kids, new experiences, and I was very fortunate to get there a number of times, but every time I got there, most of the time they were with different kids, and they were excited. And when I saw their faces, it got me excited, and like I say, it's probably one of the, if not it's certainly one of the greatest experiences in high school sports.
Something we talked about over the weekend at your banquet, and I wanted to bring it up here, is it is different now because we don't have the 8 teams in Division I, both on the boys' side and the girls' side. It's different for about 12 years now, I think, somewhere in that general area. And it's something I've talked about. I miss the old quarterfinals on Thursday, the semis, and then the championship for the D1, and then for everybody else as well. And it feels like there is something missing. How do you feel about what the state tournament is in terms of the formats? Can it be tweaked a little bit to make it a little bit better? What are your general thoughts on what would be best for the growth of high school athletics and high school basketball in particular here in Wisconsin?
Well, I'm a little biased now because I'm at a big school, but the fact that there's only 4 in each class, the excitement on Thursday isn't quite where it was when you had all the D1 schools playing on Thursday. You got to see everybody in one day, and then that was the quarterfinals, and then everybody played the next day, and of course the finals were on Saturday. But you lose some of the crowd when you cut off 4 of the bigger schools in the state and add 4 of the very small schools in the state as far as attendance is concerned. And I think we talked a little bit about areas. When there was 8 teams, you usually had a team from every area of the state. Now with 4 teams, this year, especially in D1, there's nobody in central Wisconsin. Lakeland, and congratulate to them. They're in D2, but there's no Division I, so you lose a little bit. And of course, if a school is 2,000 kids, that means there's 4,000 parents as well as students. And so there's going to be a lot more people jamming the places they play, and now the rest center, and you'd have a full house, I think.
And really, it's so hard looking at your bracket. I mean, you got the Big Rivers on the west, you got the Fox Valley on the east, you got the Wisconsin Valley Conference schools here in the middle, you got Superior way up north. It's an incredibly large section as well to try to work your way through it. You got some really talented teams that I think are more than deserving. There's just in your bracket, it really has become very difficult, and it makes, for those very fortunate 4 that do make it to the state tournament in any division, it is a very tough task, isn't it?
Oh, without question. And when you talk about the regional tournament and goes from Hudson to Superior to the Fox Valley. That's not a very small region. That's a pretty big region. And so it is a tougher thing. And then you get basically the best of all 3 or 4 different conferences. So there's a heck of a lot of competition, and it's a tough trail to win.
And Coach, kind of piggybacking off the logistics and touching on your knowledge and experience, because you've seen you've seen the seating meetings and you've seen the computer. I guess I was looking to see your opinion of it. Do you like one or the other? Does one play out differently in the way things should go? What's your thoughts on those?
Well, in my personal opinion, I like the computer. It's certainly not perfect by any means. I don't know if there is a perfect style, but the computer kind of weighs everything out. When you get to the seating meetings in the past, if you get to a seating meeting where there's 6 teams from one conference and 3 teams from another conference and maybe 2 teams from your conference, when it comes down to a vote, you know which way it's going to go.
Yeah.
The 6 teams, or the majority is going to win. And so sometimes they didn't come out the way probably they should have. Now this year, Superior, other years Superior really got shut out a lot of times. This year they're 22-1. They deserve the number 2 seed, and a lot of times, and the way it played out, the computer was pretty accurate.
And the computer does not have 10% because they don't like you. I think those in-person meetings sometimes, hey, I just don't like that guy, so I'm not going to vote for him. It's like,
well, that's true.
We heard enough stories over the years, I tell you, in different sports. It's really, if I could tell all the stories I've heard, it'd be just very, very interesting. Again, we're talking to Tom Wyckoff, the head girls basketball coach at Wausau West High School, here on the Big High School Sports Show on Bow Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Let's talk about your year. It was a year where you challenged yourself early, and it really was interesting because you played some of the top teams in the state very early in the season and got your nose bloodied a little bit. And I wanted to ask you about that now in retrospect. Sometimes you feel like you can learn a lot in those situations, and other times it feels like sometimes a team may lose a little confidence in situations like that. How do you feel like your team was able to handle some really tough games early in the season, and then to have to battle a little injury as well? But did that maybe throw you off the course a little bit early on?
I think it did. I felt we had a very good team coming back, and so I wanted to challenge them, and I wanted to get some tough competition. But our second game of the year was against Neenah, which was number 2 team in the state at that time. Our third game was against Germantown, who was number 5 in the state at that time, and our fourth game was against Hortonville, which is number 3 in the state. And you're right, we got our nose bloodied, and I think maybe it took a little bit of our confidence away. It certainly took what you were trying to build continuity, and you're trying to build something that kind of put a spear into what we're trying to build. And looking back on it, maybe I went out too tough to start.
No, this was the year, obviously, to do that, though, because, that's one thing that people, I don't think, understand is you got to know what your team is. And you had a team that did have experience. You had a team that was the 2-time defending conference champion. So, and you had these hopes that you were going to be facing that kind of competition, which you were in the postseason when you got to the sectionals. So, again, I think it's kind of easy to look back and say, well, maybe I should have altered it. But I think, looking back to where you were, it was pretty much the thing that you should do, correct?
Oh, without question. And if I had to do it again, I probably would. And I love the fact that we went and played the toughest teams around, and it shows you where your worst are and what you have to get better on. And so, the idea of it, I would do it again. But this year, it kind of took a little bit away from us.
And also, and I'll let you jump back in here, Jeff, in a moment. But when you look at when we talked, I remember we were up in Neenah last year for the regional final, and your team lost. And basically, it was a case of, hey, we know what we need to do. And I think this is not just for Wausau West, but I think for the entire Wisconsin Valley Conference right now, is that you're battling a Fox Valley that is playing very good basketball. When you look at the big picture, what are some of the things that need to be done in order for the Wisconsin Valley Conference and the central part of the state to be a little bit more, I think, on an even playing field with what's going on in the Fox Valley.
Well, the Fox Valley teams play tremendously hard. And I think that comes from the fact that every night they go out and they have to play hard and they have to really get after it, or they're going to get blown out by good teams. Plus the competition over there, they work extremely hard against each other all year round, and they got better. Unfortunately for the Valley, in the last few years, we've had the haves and the have-nots, and you get kind of complacent when you win a lot of games against the have-nots, and then when you play against teams that play as hard and tenacious and as well as they do, we're not quite there.
Well, and Coach, I was, just looking at, the season you guys had and the job you were able to do in the conference and some of those tough non-conference games that you played. I would say that adversity and facing a bunch of those different situations, you were the last surviving member of the Wisconsin Valley. This how far you made it with the regional title and into the sectionals. You guys made it the farthest. You battle tested yourself and did a good job in those games. Even when you faced a little adversity, I think you were down in both of those games and you came back and won them to plug through. I imagine you got to be happy with how the schedule maybe prepared for that and the job the girls did down the stretch in those games.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I was extremely proud of our girls in those first two regional games where we got down. We were down quite a bit at halftime in the first game, and a lot of kids would toss it and say, "Geez, we had a good year," but they came fighting back and played extremely well. And then we got up to Superior, who had a really nice team and had beaten us pretty soundly the first time we played them, and we were down again at halftime quite a bit, and they just wouldn't quit. And that's a credit to them that they wouldn't throw in the towel, and they went. Now, when we got behind in the sectionals, they were a little bit too good to try to battle back.
When you saw what Hortonville did to Neenah, I mean, it showed that I mean, when you look at a 3 seed like that's that good. It's like, man, that shows how tough that sectional really was, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And Hortonville, I thought, was a very good team. And, they split with Neenah, but they really tore up Neenah in the sectional finals. And, Rainey Wilson, that we held the 18 points. I thought she was awful good, and then she has 41 against Neenah, which is a top-flight team that had only one loss prior to that. And so they were a very good team, a very deserving team. And one thing to piggyback on what you said before between the Valley and the Fox Valley, they had 30-some kids out for basketball at Hortonville. We had 17. And that type of competition internally pushes everybody to become better. And so when you get in these games against them, they're not in awe of anything because they faced it all day, every day in practice. So I think that a lot of our schools' numbers are down, which is not good. And if there's an advantage in the Fox Valley, that certainly is there.
And how about, looking at your team from this year, the girls that you had, some of, I guess, your seniors that are moving on and graduating. What can you say about them? Share about their style of game, what they meant to the team and the program over their time spent with you?
Well, I told them at our banquet, the last 3 years when basically all my 3 seniors, I have 4 seniors, but one moved in. The 3 seniors that were there for all 3 years and played quite a bit for all 3 years were like 55-16 all overall and 31-4 in the conference. So I mean, they were good. I mean, they played hard. They won a lot of games. We did win a couple conference championships. Unfortunately, this year we fell a little bit short. I mean, the third isn't all bad, but when you win a couple, you get selfish and you want to win a few more. But in essence, our record was decent at 18-9. It was a pretty good record, but I said this at our banquet too. I said we were 4-0 against the Big Rivers, and we beat both Eau Claire and Hudson that were first and second. We beat Lakeland, who won the Great Northern Conference, and we beat Superior that won the Lake Superior Conference. So even though we fell a little bit short in our conference, we still beat 3 different conference champions in the state, so that's not all bad.
And all your non-conference games were lost to ranked teams.
Yes.
The 5 that you lost outside the league were all against top 10 teams in the state, which is pretty. You want to win those games, but at the same time, you are trying to again build during the course of the season. And sometimes, if your goal is to go 22-2, you don't schedule those games. Your goal is to ultimately win championships, and that's what you're trying to do.
Well, years ago, Al McGuire said, the way to win 20 games a season is schedule.
Truer words probably have never been spoken.
And, we won 18 games. We probably could have, with a similar schedule that we had a year ago, we probably could have won 20-something. But you to be the best, you got to beat the best. And so we scheduled the best, and unfortunately, in 5 occasions, they were a little bit better than we were.
Well, I'm always, you've logged a lot of hours in coaching and a lot of hours on the side. You've been around in a lot of different situations. I'm always in awe and curiosity too of what's changed the most for you, maybe for throughout the game. What's some of the big? I know that's a big general question. There's a lot to think of, and I apologize for that. But what's some of the biggest things that have changed for the game for you, and maybe as you continue to keep adding more and more years to your coaching experience and time, what maybe gets harder about it every year too as it goes on? Well,
probably to me the biggest change is the 3-point shot. For a good portion of my career, they didn't have it. Now all of a sudden teams have just gotten unbelievably good at making 3-pointers. And Chad was at a number of games and saw teams make 8, 12 3-pointers in a game. Just 5 years ago, if a team made 4 3-pointers against you, you thought, holy cow, are they good shooters? Now they make 8 or 10, and that's probably been the biggest change, fundamentally of the game, the 3-pointers that teams make, and 3-pointers that they attempt. Years ago, you shoot on a 3-pointer, and a coach would look at you like, hey, wait, what are you doing?
I think some of your Newman teams back in the day, I remember you were in single digits for the whole season on 3-pointers made, and you were big winners. Literally, that was not still even part of the game, even when the line came out there. But now we hear all this talk about analytics, that you should be shooting 3-pointers, and it truly is a completely different game than it was when I started watching your teams a couple of decades ago.
Without question. I'm not opposed to the 3-pointer, but I'm kind of old-fashioned. I think that, it's easier to make a 2-foot shot than a 19-foot shot, although teams kind of proved me wrong this year because of all the 3-pointers that they made. And it stresses your defense. It changes your defense. Forever, we want to take away the lane, we want to plug up the lane, we want to stop driving and all that. Well, now you do it. You stop the driver and you kick it out and you hit a 3-pointer and you go, well, that didn't work. So I don't know if it's kids have gotten that much better or what, but when you talk about analytics, before you play someone, you study the team statistics for all the years, and you go, oh, God, she only shoots 18% from 3-pointer, but she shoots almost 50. We better, emphasize the 50% shooter. And sure enough, the 18%er makes her first 4 3-pointers. And so that's the biggest change in the girl. And the other thing is girls basketball has improved so dramatically in the last 10, 20 years. Skill levels, 3-pointer being one of them, but just people like, there's Rainey Wilson, the way she takes the ball to the basket, the way she handles the ball, the way she jukes you and puts all kinds of moves on you. Well, that was almost unheard of 20 years ago. But the girls have gotten so much better and so more talented, and they do play a lot of ball all year round nowadays. They go a lot of camps, they go a lot of clinics, and the game itself has just really gotten better.
as we look forward for Wausau West next year? You obviously got a first-team all-conference performer back, Kelly Cray, who's a real matchup problem for a lot of teams. And I thought what Hortonville did was the greatest respect, because they said, we're going to keep players all over her. But to have her back as a foundation has to be something to build on.
Oh, absolutely. Certainly the shelves aren't empty. And Kelly is a good start, and Ayla Christensen started just about our season. She was a sophomore, and we had a couple other sophomores that played quite a bit this year. So there's a good foundation, and there's something to build on. And if they want to get to the level we've been at, or even obtain better things, they got to work at it. And that's the thing that probably changes as much as anything, is the fact that these kids just work at it so hard, which is great for the game, but it creates a lot of competition. and you got to meet their work ethic if you want to compete with them.
Is there, again, to generalize this, but to try to put it in one way, with a lot of thinking of your time over in basketball, I always like to hear what you think of your experience and your time. Is there, because you guys, as I've watched you at Newman and at what, you're always been a big philosophy in terms of, I'm going to adjust the players I got. I'm going to have some of my staples, but I'm going to adjust to the kids that I have. I'm going to make them the best they can be. Has there been something from your marathon days to your Newman days to your West days that this is always part of my philosophy? I never waver from this. This kind of stays as part of my thinking that helps bring that success about, because I'm a big believer in it?
Well, probably the biggest thing that translated forever is the fact that I do believe in inside-out basketball. A lot of teams nowadays just shoot. And
you're not going to be a 5-out guy?
They've had a lot of success doing it. So, that's their philosophy. I've always believed in inside-out basketball. And so, but I've had I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I am smart enough to know that it's hard to put a round peg into a square hole. So you have to adjust to the kind of players you have and the talent you have. And if you have small team, you do things differently than if you have a Kelly Cray or somebody like that. You look at it differently, what you want to do. But like I said, the big thing, the three-pointer really changed the game and changed how you defend the game. And your players have to be better all-around players. You can't just stick somebody in the lane and tell her to sit there all game long. She has to come on the perimeter. She has to be able to guard a post player. She has to guard And so in that respect, you have to adjust to what kind of talent you have.
Well, Coach, it's always been a pleasure watching you and your teams compete. Really glad able to have you come by here tonight and enjoy the state tournament this weekend. And we'll look forward to around Thanksgiving, rounding it up all over again.
There we go. Thank you for having me. I enjoy coming, and thank you for all that you do for high school basketball.
Tom Weinkoff, head coach of the Wausau West Warriors. We'll come back and we will look ahead. What can we look forward to coming up in the next few days? That's coming up here on the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, bullfallsradio.com, and mobile devices by searching WXCO. And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO. Oh, boy, a lot of talk here tonight, huh?
Yeah, that's what you want. All this great basketball talk here and insights, wisdoms about these different teams, about people's time on the sidelines, about what the players, the coaches see. That's what makes this. I don't know. That's what makes this great, and should hopefully for the listeners too, that it really shows what's out there and why you should go out and support your local high school athletics.
Well, let's talk about if your team is playing right now, you're in a good spot.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun time. This is the icing and as well as there's some pressure, but this is what it's about.
Yep, absolutely. Let's talk about the boys sectionals. Let's start with the small schools. Let's start with Division 5 because we have the Newman Cardinals taking on the Pacelli Cardinals. A game that'll be played tomorrow night at Wausau West High School. A game that I will have right here on Bull Falls Radio. Actually, it'll be on bullfallsradio.com. Sports 2 stream, and then on tape delay after the marathon game here on Bull Falls Radio. But we've talked about it. Newman Catholic has played in the Merowith South. Newman Catholic has played an incredibly difficult non-conference schedule. Pacelli went undefeated in the CWC South, did not play the level of competition in the non-conference. That doesn't mean they can't go and beat Newman tomorrow night, but it seems like Newman has done the things to be prepared for a game like this.
Well, that's why you set up your schedule early on based on like Coach Weinkauf was talking about the players you have. You want to challenge them and you want to make sure they know what adversity is going to come up. And I would, on paper, flat out, Newman has played a stronger schedule. Newman's been tested. They've played higher divisions in their non-conference, as well as they're tested in a conference that just wails on each other. I think that lends a lot to your game readiness for tomorrow. And you've seen an abundance of situations and know how to react. And I think that's a big deal because it's going to be how you react under that pressure that's going to make you more successful.
The winner of that game will take on the winner of number 8 Gibraltar and number 2 3 Lakes. It feels like a good spot for the winner of this game.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I looking just ahead a little bit because I want to see Newman do well and get down to state. And, Gibraltar comes out of that tougher conference with Green Bay New Lutheran, and they have a wide.
They showed it last year.
Yeah, they have a wide range of teams in different divisions in that conference. And I think Gibraltar was middle of the pack. I think they're currently sitting at 12 and 14.
Which is exactly what they did last year.
Yeah, it's similar. So, like Isaac Sei said when he was in here, you can't overlook anybody. You can't take anything for granted. You got to make the most of the moment that you're in at that point is some of the things he shared. And I think Newman has a good road here based on the players they have, based on the way they play the game and the way these guys have prepped for this moment. They're dangerous and they're heavily favored, I think, to be at the Kohl Center coming out of this sectional. Again, it's playoffs, so you got to play well. You don't want to make any major mistakes. You got to maybe fight through an injury or foul trouble if they come up because those things are always part of the game. And I think it's just going to be a great environment. And I think it's something if you'll see, some teams unfortunately get to do this once. You got to make the most of it and take advantage of that special moment. I think that's what Newman's going to do this weekend.
Division 4, boy, should be a great atmosphere in Marshfield tomorrow night. Tom Weaver will be there for us here on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 to 1230. Marathon and Auburndale, round number 3. As Coach Jacobson said, 6 times in his coaching career, a third meeting with Auburndale. I mean, yes, Marathon has won twice, but boy, you can put that to the side, can't you?
Yeah, it's a dogfight boxing match, whatever you want to call it. They're going to throw the punches. Auburndale, both teams, Auburndale, Marathon, both well coached, a plethora of good players. They both play as a team and understand that concept. That's the uniqueness of this because I think you have to be like Coach Jacobson said, you have to be ready for some wrinkles, but you can't abandon or stop doing what you do that got you to this point, what made you who you are and found the success that you have. And I think that's the toughest thing. So in those games, it's still going to come down to 2 things when you get to the base of this: who's going to turn the ball over less and who's going to knock those free throws down at the end. Because in these tight ones, those are the 2 things that win that game out at the end.
And the winner of that one will take on the winner of top seed St. Mary Catholic against number 2 Crivets. St. Mary Catholic goes in as a huge favorite in that game. Didn't Newman play St. Mary Catholic down at that Mark Miller tournament?
Division 4, that's not the Springs, right?
No.
Yes, they did.
St. Mary Catholic, yeah.
They were a very good basketball
and they
team.
beat Newman. So,
yes, they shot very well.
And as Coach Jacobs said, they put up a lot of points, and I think they scored more than 90. They scored 55 in the first half of that game.
They had probably, I think it was 12 made threes in the first half against Newman, who plays good defense and guards the perimeter. And this team was good. So either team, Auburndale or Marathon, is going to face a very good team, but not a team that's so dominant that they can't beat. They can both beat that team too.
I think Marathon would have a better chance because of Grant Warren in terms of having somebody that can put it in the hole on a consistent basis. Auburndale is a defensive team first.
Right.
Boy, it'd be hard to slow down St. Mary Catholic to the level that they're going to have to, I think, to win.
Well, in that game I watched St. Mary's Catholic play on Newman, the ball was shot even more so than normal exceptionally well. I mean, they were making, you're going to want, if you have a kid like Warren down low, he's going to not only alter the shot of the kid he's guarding, but he's going to clean up on the rebounds. And the less second chances those guys get can really put some pressure on them if that becomes the matchup after Thursday's game.
Division II, there could be a great Northern Conference matchup for a trip to state on Saturday, but first things first. Medford will take on La Crosse Central in Menominee, and New London will take on Mosinee in Wapaka. Medford and La Crosse Central played about a month ago on February the 4th. Medford led 28-26 at halftime, but was outscored 41-30 in the second half, lost 67-58. And Mosinee looks like they may be peaking. I mean, again, we always talk about that. Mosinee played 2 really good games in the regional. So when you look at the Final Four in that sectional 1 in Division II, what do you see?
Well, just starting with Mosinee, I mean, again, we talked about the quick outs they've had in the playoffs, or mentioned it, not to dwell on it, but I think just getting a couple wins right, that's a big deal. So I think for Mosinee, they're peaking, like you said, they're playing really well, knocking those teams off. And for Medford, you got a little redemption here against La Crosse Central in that second game.
And the thing about it is if Medford does play Mosinee Saturday, to beat Mosinee 3 times, that would be very hard.
Yeah, not easy. Mosinee's a really well-rounded team, and like you said, they're playing right at the time.
And we got about 40 seconds to go, and of course on the girls' side, Lakeland in the D2 state tournament. It's going to be tough. I mean, they're the number 4 seed. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, and I think if I check Pewaukee's record, I mean, they might only have one loss. They went undefeated and won that conference, I think. So they're exceptionally well and deserving of that 1 seed. So I think they're 27-1 or 12-0.
27-1.
12-0 in their conference, so they've played really well. So I think Lakeland's up for the test, though. Battle tested. You got some. Wilmette is a dangerous senior.
They got the cake. They're going to go for the icing here in the next few days. We'll be back next week. We'll talk to you then.
Sounds awesome. Thanks, Chad.
He's Jeff Gress. I'm Chad Holmes. Thanks for joining us here on Bull Falls Radio 98.9 and 1230.